Today I'll be talking about 3 key factors that I wish I knew before starting out my agency, because honestly, it would have saved me a lot of time. Let's get started. All right, so the first and the foremost is that mindset is honestly 80% of the game, okay? If you ask me, it's 80%. Now, when you're shifting from a designation to another designation, let's just say you are working as a job holder, and now you want to transition from that role to a business leader role, you need to understand that there are going to be a lot of negative opinions, negative comments coming your way, okay? And the only way you can get out of it is when you understand the long-term vision, the life that you have imagined for yourself. You need to consistently remind yourself about it. If you do that, it helps you navigate through a lot of negativities, and it gets you to a point where you are essentially more stronger. Your skin gets thicker. You can endure a lot more pain, a lot more rejections, a lot of more failures that come along your way for the next level of success. So that's mindset, guys. Number 2 that I would focus on is the delegation part, guys. This is something that we tend to neglect initially. Now, understand that when you're starting out as a business owner, shifting from a designation to another designation, we honestly tend to forget sometimes that it is not just about the role that has shifted, but also the mindset that has to take a shift, right? Which means that instead of you doing everything by yourself, you have to now start developing a team and start trusting the team. And you need to learn the art of delegation, okay? So, for example, when I started out, I used to do a lot of stuff. Okay, so I used to do web application development since we do digital transformation for our clients, right? I used to do quality assurance. I used to communicate with the clients. I used to gather requirements. I also used to work on sales. The thing is, I don't understand that initially it's really hard for you to kind of afford a team because you don't have money, you don't have revenue being generated by the business. That is totally understandable. But the idea is that you need to get out of the situation as quickly as possible. So what you got to do is you got to start hiring a team, okay? That's actually the way out. You need to start hiring. You need to delegate tasks, and you need to create designations within your organization. So for example, a graphic designer would do UI, UX. A developer would develop application. You need to get out of this situation as soon as possible, is because when you're doing this, a lot of it by yourself, you essentially start taking a hit on your reputation, because now you are dealing with missed deadlines. Your clients are not talking about you well enough. They would not like to refer you further to anybody of their peers. So you're taking a hit on your reputation, which is not good for your business in the long run, okay? And the other thing is that there's a sensation of founder burnout. And this is a pretty bad situation to be in, because now you feel like you're doing everything by yourself. And you know, when you feel that sensation, honestly, you need to take a step back and think about it like from a broader perspective, that the only thing that I cannot do is let go of my company. I cannot give up. So you work towards the solution. The solution is the team building process. So that would be takeaway 2. Point number 3, client persona. Now, this is also applicable to every type of business out there, but essentially what happens is when you're starting out, you don't have clients, so you start picking bad fit clients along the way, right? Bad fit clients. Now what happens is when you bring these bad fit clients, you are essentially over delivering, because they first off pay you way less than you should actually be paid. They don't respect the value you put forth to the table. And essentially, you are over delivering for the amount of revenue that they have to offer, okay? So you're consistently doing all the revisions that they ask for. They're still not satisfied with the work that you do, because they have this higher level of expectation, which you can honestly not meet. And then you also feel this urge to make more money because you're consistently underpaid for the work that you do, okay? Now, the way out is essentially defining your client persona. The ideal client clarity is very important. Now, I do understand that when you're starting out, it's nearly impossible to only work with the clients that you would love to work with. So initially, you have to take on projects that are low in value, but just to get some amount of traction in your business and make some money initially, I do understand that there might be situations where you'll have to onboard a bad fit client, but the thing is, you need to get out of it as soon as possible, even earlier than the team building process, guys. Okay, so the idea here is that defining a client persona means, for example, what we did. We create a blocker, right? Or a constraint, defining a constraint, which means that I'm only going to work on software as a service applications, okay? So essentially apps, I would say. Okay, that's constraint number one. The constraint number two is that I'm not gonna take any client that is paying me any less than $20,000. Okay, and then I also made sure that the clients were serious about their endeavor. Okay, so serious about their endeavor. That's actually very important, guys. And the way I made sure of that is I was asking them to be onboarded on a Meet, essentially Google Meet, right? So asking them to meet me online on call, where I could essentially judge the level of motivation that they have, the trust that they have in the endeavor, and how much they believe the product or the service that they have to offer to the market, right? Because if that is something that you can make sure of, the idea is that once you onboard the client, you can even onboard him by offering little to no risk, essentially maybe asking for $800 to be paid upfront, right? But the idea is once you have that confidence, it's very easy for you to trust that client, and you would be way more willing to put in the work without getting anything in exchange for the first couple of weeks. Okay, so that is essentially the idea. So seriousness is something that we would consider. Or I could even go niche specific, so software applications, software as a service applications, specifically in aviation, for example, right? So once you do that, and now you, let's say, got a prospect, is asking for a logo. He's asking for a logo, and he is essentially offering you $2,000. Okay, he's offering you $2,000 for a logo, but you just don't even bother to consider this client in the first place because they do not match your client persona. And when you do that, what happens is you essentially are filtering all the leads, which is essentially the lead filtration process, guys. And I'm going to talk about it in the in-depth video later on someday. But essentially, when you're doing this lead filtration process, you're positioning your company to effectively scale, automate, and generate more revenue for the purposes of your success, essentially. Okay, so I would say these are actually three key factors that I wish I knew before starting out my agency, guys. And honestly, if you implement these three key factors, you are going to do way better than all the competitors out there that are competing for your place, guys. So thank you so much for taking the time out and watching this video. If you got value out of this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'm going to see you in the next one. Take care.